Hi, Claire from the Confidence Coaching Company, and today we're going to talking through understanding the conscious and the unconscious mind. Some people will call it subconscious. I call it unconscious, mainly because implies that it's under, and the unconscious just I feel comes easier because it's just the word I use. So unconscious is the subconscious. It's the same thing. It's just a different word. Okay, so if I use unconscious and you use subconscious, perfectly fine. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through what the conscious and the unconscious mind do. So the conscious mind is your logical side, it's your reasoning, it's your decision making side of your mind. So it's the conscious side is what you're consciously aware of at the time, at this moment. So if you're sat down, you might be aware of your legs sat on your where you're sat, or your feet in your shoes if you're stood, or you might just be aware of the temperature of the room if I draw your attention to it. So if it's not in your conscious awareness, it's unconscious. So your unconscious mind does 95% of everything. So we live our lives 95% in the unconscious mind. So we do habits and behaviors, and they literally just go on autopilot. And then we've got 5%, which is the conscious side. So what we're consciously aware of. Because when we are consciously aware of a lot of things, that's when overwhelm happens. Okay, so we have. Oh, gone too far too quickly. The unconscious mind has lots of jobs, some of which are learning, healing. Habits we have are all unconscious, our emotions are unconscious, and our values and our beliefs are all unconscious, so they're all formed in the unconscious mind. So the iceberg is to just give you the concept of how much is it kind of looks like a brain, but anyway, it makes you aware of how much we do unconsciously, so it's just a visual there. So what happens with our conscious and unconscious mind, we have a thing in the middle. Ooh, no, it's not let me do it. There we go. So we have the conscious and unconscious mind, and in between that we have what's called the critical faculty. Some people call it the belief system. Basically, it's like the bouncers for our unconscious mind. So if our conscious mind is aware of something, like for example, if you were doing affirmations is a really good example. So when you say an affirmation and you get that little voice back going, no, you're not. So if you were like, I'm confident, and your mind goes, but you're not though. So that's your unconscious mind. That's your belief system, your critical faculty, basically balancing that pack out because it doesn't want to accept that new take on the world. So it goes against what your unconscious mind believes. So what happens with the therapy that I help people with, so the is a form of hypnotherapy, and we basically bypass the belief system, so we make changes directly in the unconscious mind, because every willpower, doing things, CBT is all working through the conscious mind, and you get the best results dealing directly with the unconscious mind and getting the conscious mind buy-in. So we get the conscious mind to agree to do the work, the unconscious mind does it in the background, so both minds are in agreement and are in agreement to do the work and allowing things to be released. And that's why what I do with the therapy side of things is quicker and easier than most therapies, because it's emotion free, it gets the results, and it gets you to a position where you can make different decisions and have different lifestyles. Um, I'll tell you a little bit about some stuff that I've done on myself and some clients later on. But the unconscious mind has lots of roles. So it's basically a giant computer, and it saves everything that we do or say. We're just not consciously aware of it. So it's all saved in the unconscious mind. So it's like a massive, we call it a timeline. So you have a timeline. So it's all saved in relation to time. So a bit like when you go on your browser history and you can go and look and see what time you've gone into a website, or to go back and look up something that you might have looked at earlier. You can all do that in your history. And again, you can do that with your mind. So when we look back, that's us looking back in our own history. So everything is saved, and it's also saved not in time. So, for example, if you did on your browser history, it would save as Amazon. So you could search Amazon and everything for Amazon would come up, and your mind's the same, and it saves everything in, like, if you think of how a computer, when you go to open a file, not necessarily on the internet, but when you go into your saved files, you go in, you create folders, and your unconscious mind is the same. So it will have a folder for sadness, anger, anxiety, frustration, irritation. So what we do with the therapy we do is we remove the negative emotions, because we don't need to keep feeling them every time we look back, if that makes sense. It organises all your memories, so it's like a sort button on the computer. Oh, we've got two ones. And it keeps memories repressed. So repressed memories are really interesting. They're not great when they come up, let's be honest. But if you don't have the resources to deal with what's in that memory, your unconscious mind will go, right, we can't deal with that. We'll push it away and push it back down. We'll repress it, and it will keep representing that repressed memory until it has resolution. So if you're sat in lockdown and you've got past events coming at you, and you're like, geez, why am I thinking of this? What's the problem? It's because it's got unresolved negative emotions on it that your unconscious mind thinks, oh, hang on, we're not very busy at the moment. Let's see if we can process this now. Okay. It runs and preserves the body, so it has a blueprint of perfect health and how your body is now. So it has, like, it runs that, and it preserves the body. So if you cut your finger, you wouldn't have to think for it to heal. It just does it automatically. Your body knows what to do, because your unconscious mind sends the things it needs to do to that area. It also makes associations, so it links things really, really quickly and learns really quickly. So when you are learning something new, your unconscious mind will learn it, but it's your conscious mind that has to be convinced that you've learned it, if that makes sense. So you have to convince yourself. So when you're convincing yourself that it's different and there's been a change, or you've learned something, your conscious mind has to go, yeah, okay, we can do that now. That's the buy-in with both sides. So your unconscious mind knows you can do it, and it's about that connection and getting your conscious and unconscious mind to associate that you've learned it. And it links things, so you might go, oh yeah, that's, so you might link, I don't know, spaghetti and noodles aren't the same thing, but they're similar. They're stringy. And so it will go, oh yeah, noodly things. You'll have an association link, if that makes sense. And it also likes clear and direct orders, and it likes serving. So when we talk to ourselves, I'm going to go into self-talk a bit off slides. So when we talk to ourselves quite negatively often, and we wouldn't talk to ourselves how somebody else would. We would talk to somebody else. It's just known. Everybody knows that how you talk to yourself, you would not talk to your friend, your family member, your child. It's just not how we do it. So why do we do that to ourselves? We are our own worst critics, and we are harder on ourselves than we are on anyone else. So today, if you do nothing else, give yourself a break. Talk to yourself as if you're a 5-year-old child. So, we make things hard for ourselves, and we make things like, we have really high, I think the word is expectations of how we should be. And they're only our expectations. They're not something that we get from anybody else. There's not anyone telling us, like, we need to clean our kitchen today. We should clean our kitchen. Well, we can clean our kitchen. So how we talk to ourselves is important. So when we say should, it's like, for me, when I have should, it gives me a feeling of anxiety. It's like, oh God, I've really got to do that. And if you said, I should clean my kitchen, that makes me really not want to do it. But if I said I could clean my kitchen, well, it makes me want to go do it. So language is really important in self-talk, and I'll do a video in the next couple of days on self-talk and some tools and some switching of words and things you can change. But again, these things only work if you use them. Okay, let's get back on to this. So the unconscious mind controls and maintains perceptions. So you will only perceive what you are able to perceive. Okay. So when we are in a situation, I'm going to go into this in a minute. I think it's, oh, yeah, let's go into it now. So, oh, no, too far. This is a bit about mind body connection, but I think I might go into this another time. So this is what we call the NLP model of communication. So let's think of right now, you're sat watching or listening to me ramble on about the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. So this is an external event. Something is happening and there's 11 million bits of information coming at us, but consciously you're only aware of maybe my voice or looking at the slide. You're only aware of what you're focusing on. Okay. So this is going to go, this external event goes through your five senses. So your sight, your hearing, your touch and feelings, and your olfactory, so your smell, and your gustatory, which is your taste. You won't be aware necessarily of taste unless I draw your attention to it. What's the taste in your mouth? If you breathe in through your mouth, is there a taste? So that's what I mean about conscious awareness. Back to the slide. You will then filter, because our conscious mind can't deal with 11 million bits of information. So it filters it, and it does it unconsciously. It filters and it deletes, distorts, and generalizes based on what we call model of the world. So your model of the world is your attitudes towards things, your values and your beliefs, and everybody's is different. These are programmed, programmed, I said that, into us. So we are taught what is important by parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, teachers, and our values and beliefs are not our own. And sometimes what can happen is we kind of go into a little bit of a crisis because we're actually living, and you get to the age, I think it's around 25 or 30, and you then start to question things because things have been a certain way all of your life. But then you're like, well, for me, it was why is that way? What does that mean? Yeah, sure, family is important, but what does that mean? do you understand? Um, so the values and beliefs that you have, most have been handed down from generation to generation to generation. So you will have some beliefs in there that don't serve you at all. And then you'll have some self beliefs as well, which will affect how you see the world. Because if you think you can't, you're right. And if you think you can, you're right there as well. So if you believe you can't, if your belief is you can't do something, you there's no change in that unless you change that belief. But if you believe you can, of course you can. What's stopping you? Nothing, because there's nothing belief wise that's in your way. And that's another thing I help people work on. I help change beliefs and remove the beliefs that limit how you are and how you want to be. So if you have a belief you can't be successful, well, that's going to limit how you are in the world. So that isn't useful, but we can remove it really, really easily. Actually, it takes like 10 minutes to remove a belief. And lots of people have different ones: not being good enough, not believing that they are pretty good looking. There's all sorts of beliefs. Then you've got meta programs. So meta programs is a technical term for personality traits. So introvert and extrovert. The true meaning of introvert and extrovert is introverts recharge themselves on their own. So when you are feeling tired, you feel more energized after you have an evening in with a book or a film, and it's just you in a room on your own. You don't have to interact with other people. Extroverts recharge their batteries by being in company with other people. So they get that charge from being in conversations and social situations with people. You can be a mixture of both because there's no set way to be in the world. It's all your choice. Um, it's also past decisions and memories. So they will filter through those. So if you've done something one way before, you'll probably do it similar the next time, unless it didn't work and you've decided you're not going to do that again. That way, then you're more likely to make a different choice on decisions. And language is how you self talk and those kind of language. Time, space, matter, and energy. So lots of people have different beliefs about time and space. Time is time linear? Is it not linear? Where does energy come from? You know, is there more energy wavelengths than we know about? Probably. Can spirits come down? Spirits is a form of energy. So do they exist? What about matter? Is it real or is it just vibrations? And space, is there just us or is there additional life? So many conversations that you could have on those things. So this is really happens really, really quickly. So it comes through the external event, it goes through our five filters, five senses, and then it gets through our senses. Sorry, can't speak. Through our filters, and we delete, distort, and generalize based on how we see the world. So when somebody says, I can't remember anything that happened 10 minutes ago, that's perfectly fine. Their conscious minds deleted it because it wasn't that important, or they felt that in their model of the world it wasn't useful information. I'll give you an example with this. Actually, my son is autistic, and when he has overwhelm, his unconscious mind literally deletes everything because it isn't important information. He goes into survival mode, which is fight, flight, or freeze, and it's normally fight or flight. When he was really young at school, he used to um, go into flight quite often, which was lots of fun chasing after him with a 2-year-old on your hip. But yeah, so the unconscious mind can distort things as well. So it can, when people we say people stretch the truth and distort things. Well, that does happen, and it's a process. It's not intentional. Okay. So all of that happens. So it goes through the external event, through the five senses, the filters, based on our model of the world, and that creates an internal representation. So a memory file, like on the computer, based on that event. So it will save about 126 bits of information we have conscious access to out of those 11 million bits per second. So when we look back on what's happened in our life and think of a significant event, you only have 126 bits of information about that you can consciously access. Interesting, right? So how much missing information have you got? You've only got your view on it, so your model of the world, you can only see it how you see it. You can take yourself out and go into and look at it as somebody else. However, it's always going to be your perception of that event, and we'll go into perception in a second. So on that internal representation, you have a state, which is an emotion. So that can be positive, negative, neutral. There isn't any emotion that isn't available on an internal representation. And then your physiology. So your physiology is how you stand, how you hold yourself. So what we do with the therapy that I offer is we deal with that internal representation and the emotions that are linked to it, and also that will change your philosophy. So the research behind the therapy that I offer is that if you change one thing, it changes how you behave, and everything is just behavior. Okay, so if we turned, for example, if you were feeling really, really, I don't know, low right now, and you're sat on your sofa or you're huddled in your bed and you're really, really low and you're huddled in and you're probably hugging into yourself somehow because that's how we sit when we comfort. I think it's linked to the womb, and how closed up we are in the womb. If you think fetuses and babies are. Anyway, I digress. So if we change the physiology, it will change the state. What will change the internal representation, so it will change how we feel, basically. So, and that will change how we behave. So what we do when we work together is we deal with the state, so we deal with the emotions, we deal with your physiology, so we change all different ways of changing that internal representation so you can see it a different way. Because if you can see things differently, you can behave differently, and that's what that's about. And remember, anxiety is a behavior. It's because of something. It's not who you are. Anxiety is a behavior, and all behaviors can be changed. The mind is plastic, so it's called neuroplasticity. And I was telling somebody about this the other day. So when a person has a stroke, this is how plastic the mind is. The part of the brain that the stroke happens, so when the stroke happens, it basically it doesn't act. It isn't active anymore. That's the words I want. It isn't active. So when somebody has a stroke, that part of their brain operates some part of their body, so their arms or their legs. So they use, when they have a stroke, they lose the use of that part of the body, wherever the I think it's bleeds, isn't it, for strokes? So wherever that is in the brain, that's what causes the damage, which means that you can't use that side of the body or that hand or that finger, you know. Anyway, I think you get the idea. So what happens is when you are retraining yourself, you're not building up that part that you used to use in your brain. It's using different parts that's near to it. So it's retraining. It's training a part that does something else that's quite close to the part of the brain, and it's basically retraining that brain and getting the neurons to fire to create a new behavior from another part of the brain. Okay, and that's what happens with when somebody who has a stroke is doing the physiotherapy. It's to rebuild the neurons and to get that neuron firing connection. And that's what we do with the processes that we use, is we're changing how your mind works and how the neurons fire. And it's all really interesting. And it goes back to a little bit to this one. Oh, no, too far. I need to get better at using this. There we go. So this is the unconscious, this is the mind. So these are neurons firing, and in between these, so when we are told we have depression and anxiety because of a lack of serotonin or whatever chemical they say in the brain. So what happens is the neurons fire and you get these chemical transmitters, and they fire between. So these interesting fact that's just come to mind, 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. I'll repeat that. 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. So if our gut health isn't healthy, then our minds are going to be less healthy. Okay, because that's where the serotonin has come from. Now, I could say a lot about chemicals and the research behind it, but I'll save that for maybe in a week or so, once you guys have got the basics in. Okay, so perception is projection. So we've got that 11 million bits of information coming in here, and that comes into the unconscious mind, and we process it through all those filters that we've just seen. But we've got, our memory bank has 126 bits of that information. So when you think of that 126 bits, we have to think of how much we're missing, and also that we can only see it how we see it. So we have to accept that, yes, if we believe we are right, but then also so is the other person. If it's regarding a disagreement or a situation, nobody is wrong because nobody has all of the information. So based on what you'll know, yes, you're right, but based on what the other person knows, they are also right. Does that make sense? I hope it does. If anyone has any questions about any of the slides or what I'm talking about, you can always comment below, and I can always go into it in a bit more detail on a live, so you guys can ask questions. I'm happy to do that. Cause and effect is one of my most life-changing realizations. So cause and effect is, for example, if you push a button, something's going to happen. Okay, so you cause something by doing something, and an effect happens. So it's the butterfly effect, the ripple effect. So, so the cause is the results, and the effect is the reason. So, what we want you to be, because if we're at effect, so this is in how we behave, when you're at effect, you're saying it's because this happened and that happened and XYZ happened. Okay, so it's the reasons why things are the way they are. If you go to cause, it's about what you have done or what decisions you've made. So it's not taking the blame, it's nothing to do with blame. It's about going, right, in that situation, what did I do that made an effect on the situation? So if you're, I'll go back to my kids because this is probably the easiest example. So I always used to get really, really, really angry with Oliver because I couldn't manage his behaviours. And I would, in the end, wind him up and he would have a meltdown. So the effect was he would have a meltdown, because I was pushing him to do something, and he has anxiety. Well, he had anxiety, lesser, a lot lesser now. So the effect is his behaviour. The cause is me pushing him to do something that he wasn't able, didn't have the resources to do. So the reasons for the behaviour are because of something I've pushed for. So I don't take the blame for all of that, because obviously I was doing the best I can with the resources I have or had at that time. However, it still affected how he behaved, and it caused a problem. So once I took responsibility and said, well, if I hadn't have done that, that probably wouldn't have happened. Or if I had, so another example, car accidents, a really good example. So when somebody crashes into you, an example, I was driving a few years ago now. I was driving and following somebody. They went straight ahead at a roundabout. I turned left, Milton Keynes, the land of roundabouts. You might have heard that. And I went to the roundabout. There was a car coming, and you know when you judge it and you're like, are they going quick enough or slow enough for me to sneak in and just get past? And I was like, no. And at the last minute, I was like, I stopped. However, the lady behind me didn't, and she smashed into the back of my car. And I was really angry because there was like a few months before an event, and I was like, oh my God, my back hurts, my leg hurts, this is going to be awful. So I had lots of emotions, lots of negative emotions: angry, upset, furious, um, hard done by, why me, all of those things. However, when I look at it now, if I'd have followed the person I was following anyway and wasn't trying to race them home or to wherever we were going, then I wouldn't have been in the position where that happened, because I would have gone a different way. If I'd have slowed down a little bit before, again, maybe she would have seen me braking and would have not thought I'd gone, and she would have stopped without crashing into me. If I'd have gone, because there was probably enough time, I was being a little bit cautious, then that would have been a difference as well. So I have some cause over things that have happened in my life. And if you want to talk more about that, you can message me if you want to. But it's not about blame. It's just taking responsibility for things you have done in the situation, because if you hadn't done that, maybe that wouldn't have happened. And it's not so much about beating yourself up. It's about just learning that, it's okay. You've made a decision, so it's your control. It empowers you, because sometimes we think just stuff happens to us, but we make millions and millions of decisions every day. I don't know, millions might be a stretch, but definitely hundreds of thousands decisions, like in an instant, like, oh, I'm just going to pick that pen up, or I'm just going to move that paper clip. It's all a decision. And it's about taking what you can from it and say, right, okay, in that situation, what did I do? So in a bad relationship, did I decide to stay because I wasn't ready to leave? Yes. So, it empowers you in that everything doesn't just happen to you. We make decisions that keep us in certain situations or put us in certain situations. And it's okay to make those decisions. And if you look back, hindsight, oh, I love hindsight. I don't, I'm being sarcastic. Hindsight is horrendous for looking back and beating ourselves up. Because in hindsight, if you look at now what happened when you were 18, you have so many more resources now in your life. You've learned so many more life lessons. Because if you were 18 and something happened, or you were going through something, and you look at it now and said, well, we could have done this, that, and that. Well, you wouldn't have got to where you are now without having been through that phase. Does that make sense? So you will look back in hindsight, but you're looking back with the resources you've got by going through the things that you've got. So with everything, we learn how to deal with situations and how to process stuff. Not so much the emotion side, and if they're a significant event, normally they'll keep popping up. But it's about going, yeah, do you know what? Fair enough. I don't have, I have a lot more resources. I'm a lot more capable now than I was when I was 18, 21, 25, whatever age you were when that thing happened. Stop beating yourself up about it. Just stop it, because you're not the same person now that you were then. And yes, anxiety exists and depression exists and mental health conditions exist because we're not taught how to deal with the things that happen to us. So we're not taught how to process emotions. We're not taught how to be emotionally intelligent, because if we have that, then, you know, there's lots of things that would be drastically affected by everybody being emotionally intelligent and not doing, like, buying things on Amazon because, it'll make us feel better. Because if you're emotionally intelligent, only that comes from inside, and dealing with the stuff that's making you feel like you're not good enough or not wanted, or the things that make you not feel good. Once you're emotionally intelligent, you can then deal with things differently, and it's about that would change your behavior as well. Okay, so I'm going to do peripheral vision again quickly because it's my most favorite thing to do. We're going to add in, so I hope I've not bored you too much with the conscious unconscious mind, but we're going to do what's called an anchor. Okay, so wherever you are, sitting or standing, look at something across the room from you. And I want you to just raise your eyes slightly above eye level, and you're just going to relax the muscles around your eyes. Okay, and as you relax them, you'll notice that you can see a little bit more of the room. So I'm just going to ask you to keep relaxing and relaxing and relaxing until you can see more and more of the room. And then what I want you to do is just move your hands slowly up to the side of your eyes, so they're either side of your face. If you wear glasses, near where your glasses are. Sunglasses, if you don't wear normal glasses, everybody wears sunglasses. And just wriggle your fingers. And if you can see your fingers wriggling at the side of your face, you are in what's called peripheral vision. So we spend a lot of life in foveal vision, which is very focused. Because of the lifestyle we live, foveal is our main focus. But we want to use peripheral vision because you can take in more of the room and it relaxes the conscious mind. So that will slow down your self-talk and how you feel inside. Because self-talk and the conscious mind, that being very active in foveal vision, you want to be in peripheral vision, and it's something to get used to. So when you're in peripheral vision, once you've checked your fingers, I want you to make a fist with your left hand, and I want you to take your pointer finger, your first finger, I don't know, index finger, Is that what it's called? On your right hand, and on your fist with your first knuckle, I want you to, while you're in peripheral vision, just hold that down on your first knuckle. So your first finger, your index finger on your first knuckle, and you're just going to hold that while you're in peripheral vision. Then I want you to take it off. Okay, and then we're going to do that again. So check you're in peripheral vision. So wriggle your fingers, and you can lower your eyes down if you want to the keeping the same vision, but lower your eyes down and focus. Check your peripheral vision, and press the index finger, I will remember what it's called, I promise, onto your first knuckle. So what we're creating now is what's called an anchor. So it's like your button, it's your go-to button. So if you're in self-talk, or you're feeling those anxiety feelings, or those feelings of something that's impending, then you can just press your button and it will quieten your mind. Okay, so keep doing that, keep practicing it, keep building up that pressure on the knuckle. So we're going to do it one more time. So again, extend your vision to peripheral vision, check you're still in it, wriggling your fingers, and then you're going to lower your eyes down, and then you're going to touch, staying in peripheral vision, your index finger to your first knuckle, and hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. And then you take your finger off, and you can come out of peripheral vision and just focus in on, so if you're focusing in on your hand, so it's really hard for me to stay up peripheral vision now. So if you're really, really focusing on your hand, no, I can't. Yeah. So really focusing on your hand so you can't see more of the room. And then I want you to press your knuckle, and you'll find you automatically go into peripheral vision. So that's something you can use. It's a really useful tool. So that's focusing on extending your vision. And that is about the unconscious mind. I could go into so much more detail. However, that's the basics. There's lots more jobs the unconscious mind does. It has prime directives. If you want to know more about the unconscious mind and the conscious mind and jobs and stuff, let me know underneath. I'm happy to go into more detail. I just don't want to bore you guys to death with all that information. So thank you for watching. If you have any more questions, comment below. If you want to book a free one-to-one, you can do that by commenting or messaging me directly. I think most people in the group are friends with me. If not, drop me a friend request, also absolutely fine. And you can message me to arrange a one-to-one. They're about an hour. It helps me because it helps me with research into anxiety and behaviours. And then if there's within the group, if there's more people with certain behaviours, then I can give you some tools to manage those. Take care, have a lovely day, and I will speak to you all again soon.